the recording will be available if you've got colleagues or peers that are keen to listen in but didn't get the chance to dial in today. I know quite a few states are on school holidays, so I'm sure people are out having lots of fun and will be keen to dial in once they get back into their office. So that's great. So we'll get started then and have a look at the content that we're covering off. So just a bit of an introduction first and foremost. So my name's Imogen and I'm the Corporate Partnerships Manager for Excelsia College Online. So that means that I work with schools and industry groups and groups of teachers who are looking at furthering their leadership skills and moving up in their career, working with schools to facilitate that for their employees, that type of thing. I do have around 10 years of consulting experience in education, so it's been really rewarding to kind of see the online learning market really take off and produce such quality teaching and learning experiences without having to be all in the same room at the same place at the same time. So that's a bit of my background. We also, as I said, have Dr. Stiles here today, who will be our guest speaker talking about the great topic that we've got. To give you a bit of background for those people that have perhaps not met Peter themselves, Dr. Peter Stiles is the Acting Head of Education here at Excelsia College. He trained as a primary school teacher at Armidale Teachers College, took several other degrees in English and education, and completed his PhD at the University of Glasgow in 1995. Dr. Stiles has published academic and creative works and has extensive teaching experience in primary, secondary and tertiary settings, and has held several major senior positions at schools, both state schools and private schools. He's a fellow of the RSA, a member of the College of Educators and a Justice of the Peace in New South Wales, and we're delighted to hear all of that experience contribute to Peter's thoughts on encouraging a culture of lifelong learning in your school. So welcome, Peter.
Thanks, Amelia.
So Peter is going to start off with giving you a little bit of an introduction to Excelsior College. I know the people that have just commenced study this week will have a fair bit of knowledge about Excelsior already, but I'm sure you'll all love to hear Peter's history of the college and a bit of an introduction there. And then Peter will jump right in and talk about encouraging that culture of lifelong learning, and then we'll follow up with a little bit of information about that degree that some of you are studying and looking at studying, and then we'll pop over to the questions that you're populating at the moment. So I might hand over to you, Peter, to talk a little more about Excelsior.
Sure, Amelia. Let's go to the next slide, please. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Amelia, for your gracious welcome. I appreciate it very much, and it's lovely to have you working with me on this. Excelsior College was formerly known as the Wesley Institute. It was situated in Drummoyne in Sydney and is now relocated to Macquarie Park, which is quite close to Macquarie University. It's in a good area because it's surrounded by tertiary institutions. Established in 1983, only in the last couple of years has it become associated closely with an American Christian university called Indiana Wesleyan University, which is one of the largest Christian universities in the US and a leading provider of online education. And they've had, as you can see, about 95 years experience with Christian-based education. I think sometimes we lose sight of how many excellent tertiary institutions with a Christian foundation there are in the United States, and Indiana Wesleyan is one of that group, and a good connection for us in terms of resourcing. We do share what's called the Lumen Research Institute now between our two institutions, which is an institution devoted to collaborative research, running conferences, and just generally good interaction between academics from both institutions. So it's a good thing to belong to the Lumen Research Institute. Excelsior College is reservedly Christian in orientation, and closely aligned with some key players in the Sydney Anglican Diocese. But having said that, we have appealed right across the board to people from all backgrounds, all a variety of backgrounds in Christianity and other faiths too. Students come here from other backgrounds as well. So it's not narrow. It's not a narrow institution by any means, although we hope to have a very Christ-centered approach to education. Christian education, to my mind, is really important. I think my personal view is that if we're Christians, we believe that all truth, goodness, and things of worth come from God the Father and Jesus, His Son, and that we should be aspiring to incorporate understanding of our Christian faith into the things that we do, even drill right down into all aspects of education. So that's what we try to do here at Excelsior. So every course that you do here will have a Christian foundation to it, but hopefully broad and certainly not narrow, in the sense that we will encourage you to read widely and to have your own opinion on things. And if a student came into this college from a totally different background, and we do have that, people from Hindu or whatever background, that we hope that they would feel equally welcome here, whatever their background happens to be. But we do think that it's really important, especially in the realm of education, to have a faith-based approach to education. And as a result, we have a very close relationship as a college with a large number of Christian schools in New South Wales and across Australia. And Christian schools seem to favour us in many ways, which is good. So doing a degree with us can often open up opportunities for teachers of all ages to gain positions in Christian schools. Having said that, it's sometimes difficult for people to attend a university campus to do their study, and that's why we're quite keen on the online delivery mode, because it doesn't matter where you are in Australia, you can take our degrees, 2 degrees, Master of Teaching and Master of Education. So we do have students all over, and we have students in quite remote locations undertaking our degree. As long as they have internet access, they're able to do it. So, and it doesn't seem to be an impediment. For most people, find it easy enough to use the online platform that we have, Moodle, and gain good results as a result, have a good learning experience as a result of doing their studies online. And we do have, as part of our degrees, sometimes an opportunity for people to come to the college, and we hope that if you ever were, and if you undertook one of our degrees, you would come to the college and see the facilities here in Macquarie Park, which are really excellent. So, Excelsia College is one of a number of players in this field, a number of institutions that offer educational degrees with a Christian foundation, but we are proud of what we do, and we think it's a good product and something we can be proud of. And certainly there doesn't seem to be any problem with people doing our degrees gaining employment in schools, both in the faith-based environment and also in state schools. But probably particularly in the faith-based schools, it's been easy for people to gain employment from having done a degree here at Excelsior. Excelsior also offers degrees in drama and music and counselling and business now too as well, and all of these degrees are proving to be successful in their own way. So that's a little bit about Excelsia College. You can ask me other questions if you want to, more penetrating questions when we have the question time. I'm only too happy to answer it and to be as transparent as possible about who we are and what we do and where we've come from and so on. I might move on if that's okay, Amelia, and talk now about the topic. So
yep.
So let's do that now. So it's really important, I think, to have an environment where lifelong learning occurs, and we hope to encourage that here in our college, and encourage everybody who's a student here to pursue that as part of their own journey as well. And I've listed some points here that I think are really relevant to the topic of lifelong learning. I personally have been a lifelong learner. As Amelia introduced me to you, I've undertaken 4 university degrees and also studied at Regent College in Vancouver as well, which I didn't take a degree there, but I did some theological studies there as well. So I think my children often laugh about me that I've been studying in so many institutions around the world over the years. I've lost count of them actually at different points. So lifelong learning to me is really, really important. It's something that I've encouraged in my children as well. They've become quite intellectually gifted and pursued their own studies as well. And that's something that I would hope that every one of us could encourage in the schools in which we live, the schools in which we work, the learning environments in which we work. So I'll just work through these points very briefly. So the first thing is to be a reader. Academic success very rarely comes without being a reader. And reading is a critical aspect of academic success and really goes hand in hand with writing. Very few people that write well are not readers, or put it the other way around. People that write well are usually people that read extensively. So one thing that you should do in your school is to demonstrate that you are a reader, both within and outside of the classroom. I was head of English in a couple of schools, and when I was in that role, I always used to demonstrate to the children in my class that I was interested in reading over and above what I was teaching in the class. So I'd often bring my own novel in with me and set aside some time to read, which I'll come to in a minute. But I think it's important that you do that. I think it's important to be a reader. I read a lot. I'm known to be a person who has a fairly large personal library, and I've always got books stacked beside my chair in the lounge room. My children often laugh about it. So I love reading, and I love reading widely, and I've always encouraged the students in my class to do that, to read widely, to read outside what's necessarily the topic on the day, and just come and talk to me about it. So moving on to the second point, I think it's important to encourage quiet reading for short periods in the classroom, like drop everything and read, DEAR. I used to do that when I was an English teacher, and I've seen teachers in other subject areas doing that as well. Allow 5 or 10 minutes at the beginning of the lesson, maybe a bit extravagant, maybe just 5 minutes. It's also a good exercise for getting the children settled down, is to just let them read for 5 minutes. Bring something of their own to read, regardless of the subject, and just let them read for 5 minutes, and you'll be surprised how much they settle down. Teaching in a boys' school, as I did, a well-known boys' school here in Sydney, I used to do that quite a bit, especially after the lunch break when they came in all hot and sweaty and, just coming off the football field or whatever. Let them read for 5 minutes, and that tends to get them quieted down and focused. So I used to do that quite a lot, and it's a productive thing. It's not a waste of time. It's a really good thing to do. And sometimes just have a whole period of reading. If you have a 40-minute period just committed to reading, found that useful too at times. Now, and I also think it's really important to allow your students to discuss their reading and their hobbies, their interests in class. I think they want to know you as a person, as a whole person, someone not just limited to the subject you teach, but someone who's got interests outside of that, and that you're interested in the things they're interested in as well, as you're interested in the subjects they find interesting. I had a perfect example of that in one school I taught in, where I had a boy who was really not really particularly interested in reading the English exercise set, and when I even asked them to bring something of their own, he said, oh, I don't read, sir. I just don't read. I said, well, you must have some interest. And Abdu, his name was, I said, bring along, what do you like? He said, oh, I like cars. I said, well, bring your car magazines in and read them in the free reading time. And so he did that, and it was quite funny because what he really liked more than anything else was Nissan Skylines. I don't know if you know what they are, but the type of car that a lot of people, young people, like to soup up and make into a hot rod. So he brought in his car magazines, and we'd go through them, looking at cars, and I took a real interest in what he was doing. And one day he came to me and said, sir, do you want to come and see my car? It's parked outside on the street. I said, well, he said, do you want to come for a ride? I said, oh, no, I can't do that, Abdu, but I will come out and have a look at it. So I did that. I went out and had a look at his car. And only just recently I learned that he's made a career out of selling cars. He's actually manager of a major car showroom here in Sydney this years later. So taking an interest in their hobbies, their interests, can be a very productive thing to do in the classroom. It's instinctive for a lot of teachers, but sometimes we get so swept along by the demands of the curriculum that we don't allow for that interaction with children that we need to. So, and I've done that many times over with different kids through the years. Now, I think another thing is to make sure that you capitalize on the library within your school. So encourage children to visit and use the library, and sometimes I would take my classes to the libraries for a library period and let them do some research and work there, just to encourage them to have a sense of what a library is as a repository, a place where you can actually learn a lot. And obviously you do a lot of that online now, of course, but nevertheless, libraries are important places, and books are still highly valued, and everyone knows now that despite the digital age, there are more books produced each year than ever, and the books are certainly not going out of fashion. It's interesting that trend has occurred, counter trend really. So value public and university libraries. I think that's really important too. I think if possible, encourage your children to in your school to belong to a public library or have access to a university library, and just show them what a valuable resource a library is. And I think sometimes we undervalue libraries in our society. Sometimes I just think we haven't quite got it in that sense. These are amazingly useful resources, and they're good places. They're quiet usually not always, but they're good places where you can soak up the value of reading and books and learning. Doesn't matter what the topic is. It's just a question of broadening your interests and getting out there and doing it. I've always been passionate about knowledge. I think it's really important that if you're going to encourage an atmosphere where lifelong learning occurs, that you need to foster an environment where that you have an disarmingly enthusiastic attitude to all knowledge, so that you're passionate about learning. Like Australians are great; they're passionate about sport, often passionate about other issues, political issues, but sometimes not as passionate as they should be about knowledge. And I think even knowledge, it doesn't always have to be pragmatic for pragmatic purposes. It can just be valuable in itself. You can have knowledge that's just for the sake of knowledge and understanding, and I've seen that a number of times. A friend of mine is a retired academic in England, a lovely man. He was a professor of meteorology, and he's developed a passion for understanding the variety of insect life in the part of England where he lives, in Norfolk, and he just exudes enthusiasm and passion for it. We've all met people like that who are just so enthusiastic about knowledge. Professor Waterhouse, who retired many decades ago from Sydney University, was Professor of Italian. Took us, on his retirement, became a leading world expert on camellias. And you can still go to his house in North Sydney and see the fantastic camellia garden that he's developed. So it's really important to be enthusiastic about knowledge, and I think that will transfer to the students you have if you are like that, regardless of what it is. My son's a Roman historian. He's just finishing his PhD at Oxford, and he is just besotted with Roman history. So you can imagine the interesting dinner time conversations that we have when he's in Australia or when I'm over there. So it is important to be enthusiastic, and that enthusiasm can carry you through life. At the moment, I'm writing a book on C.S. Lewis, and I just absolutely besotted with C.S. Lewis and try to read a little C.S. Lewis every day of the week. So I try to understand the man, his background, what made him the person he was. Now, another thing that I think is important is to make sure that you allow time for detailed discussion with students and teachers. It sometimes doesn't happen. In some of the schools I've worked in the last, say, 10, 15 years, in some environments I've noticed that there's very little time given to discussion of issues in the staff room or with students in the playground, sitting down beside them, talking things through. I think that's really important. When I was teaching a head of English in a state high school here in Sydney, we used to, every lunchtime, the staff would sit down around the table and have our cups of tea and our lunch and just talk about issues. And I thought that was lovely. It was something, and they weren't all Christians by any means. Some of them went strongly anti-Christian, actually, but we did have interesting discussions around the staff room table. And it's something I would encourage, because you want to be careful that you're not overwhelmed by pragmatism, which is one of the things that is such a strong driving force in Australian education, sort of a vocational orientation and a sort of strange pragmatism to just meet all the demands of the curriculum without the joy of learning, without the joy of pursuing knowledge. And I think that's important, that you have that passion. So another thing that's really become evident more recently, and it's the buzzword now, is kind of a research culture in your classroom and in your learning environment. And that's kind of filtered down from the top, from tertiary institutions like ours and universities. Tertiary institutions can't really survive unless they have a research culture. There are colleges that don't have a strong research culture, but we're trying to develop that, as I mentioned, with the Lumen Research Institute. Research is really important to us here, and I think it's important in schools as well, that you allow the children time to do some research on their own, and particularly that the teachers be given scope. If you're in a position of authority within a school, giving the teachers scope to pursue some of their own research around whatever topic it has to be. It doesn't have to be a major piece of research. It's just really important that they use their skills in that area. And the next point is important to take time out from marking to talk about books. I see a lot of people buried in in marking. I just think, as I said before, it's really important to have time to talk about books and about films and things that are of interest to you. And I think that cultivates this atmosphere of joy, the joy of learning and the joy of pursuing knowledge. And I've mentioned Professor Waterhouse, and the next point sort of touches on that: embrace new areas of knowledge, whatever stage of your career. The idea of thresholds, where you reach a certain point, it's not possible to embrace new areas of knowledge. That's really gone by the board, and have people like Howard Gardner and people like that have debunked that idea, because it's really possible for people of all ages to embrace knowledge at whatever stage of life they're at, as long as there's no major impediments in their life, such as illness or frailty or something else. And as long as they can keep up with the technology, which is really important as well, it's important to embrace new areas of knowledge. I like to think it's possible. A person I really respect is Professor of Ancient History at Macquarie University, Professor Edwin Judge, who is a world-renowned expert in the area of Roman history. This is spinning off from my talking about my son. And he turns 90 next year, and he's still producing papers, and he's still writing and appearing at conferences, and still passionate about his area of interest. And so I think it's important to embrace new areas of interest too as you go along, whatever your stage of life. You don't have to shrink back into becoming a grey nomad or just playing lawn bowls. You can go on learning right through your whole life. And I think you need to, that's why it's a good idea, I think, the next point, to bring older people into the learning environment and show the children that even retired people or older people have lots to contribute. And if they come in and speak about their interests and the things that make them tick, it's a good thing for the students. I'm really keen on that idea. So in terms of lifelong learning for yourself, I think it's really important that you attend professional development courses, and I know you need to do that for registration in some instances, to continuing registration, but you also need to do it just to maintain your interest and understanding. I think going to conferences is a good thing. I am keen on that for teachers, and I think you should encourage the executive of your school to allow staff out to attend conferences to increase their understanding, build collegiality with people from similar backgrounds. That's really, I think, significant. I'm a bit of a conference junkie, but it is really important, especially here in Australia, because we are often we're quite isolated in some ways, so it's important. I think I actually like going overseas to attend conferences, and I think it's something you should encourage in yourself, is to get out and enlarge your understanding of where you can pursue different areas of knowledge outside of Victoria or New South Wales or wherever you're situated. And I think that can be facilitated too by doing things like joining professional associations such as the Australian College of Educators, which I'm a life member of now. I've been in it for so long. That's a good thing to do, and you have subject-specific associations that are important too for you to pursue your understanding of your particular area of expertise, your subject area. And if you're not a member of the Australian College of Educators, I'd really encourage you, especially if you're further on the track in your career, I'd really encourage you to join. It's well worth it. And the last point there is encourage colleagues to pursue higher education and education, or whatever their discipline happens to be. So pursuing higher degrees is a valuable way of extending your knowledge, and as you can see, I'm sort of a witness to that, and it's been something that I've really enjoyed over the years, pursuing higher degrees, and certainly it really helps you in your career. I used to be on the executive of one school, and I used to always take note of people who pursued higher degrees because it tells me a lot about that person, if they've been keen to pursue a master's degree. And in some schools, it depends on the attitude of the executive of the school, but in some schools too, you'll be given financial support to do that. School I was working in, we used to give staff 50% towards their fees to pursue a higher degree in education or an area relevant to their teaching. So there's a few things, Amelia, that come to mind. I hope that's helpful to people, but I think lifelong learning is just absolutely key, because we live for quite a lot longer than we used to, and we want to keep doing the right thing. So lifelong learning is an obvious way to make our lives, enrich our lives and make them worthwhile and enjoyable,
Yeah.
especially if we're intellectually gifted people. Thanks, Amelia.
Thanks so much for that, Peter. As an individual pursuing lifelong learning, it's been immensely insightful, and thank you for sharing your experience and your advice as a
Thanks,
seasoned
Amelia.
lifelong learner. Pleased to say I'm reading a fiction and non-fiction book at the moment, and I'm attending the CSA conference on Monday. So I've got at least 2 of your points covered in some shape or form.
Good. That's good. That's good.
I can see a couple of questions flowing through, which is great. So we'll get to them in just a moment. But if anyone on the line is attending the CSA conference next Monday, Peter and I and our colleagues will be there at the New South Wales and Victorian events, and we've got colleagues attending in South Australia and WA as well. So we'd love to hear from you on the day if you're there, obviously pursuing your own lifelong learning journey. So thanks so much, Peter, for that.
Thanks, Amelia.
Peter is our course coordinator for the Online Master of Education and shares his wealth of experience, as he has done today, across that whole program. So just to give those listening in a little bit of information about that degree, if you're thinking about taking it up or if you've just started this week, so the Master of Education, as most of you would be aware as education professionals, is for those people looking to develop and enrich their teaching practice. So for existing practicing teachers looking to take a step up into a leadership position or further their specialisation as really talented teachers in the education profession. Being an Excelsia College degree, it's absolutely faith-based learning at the core of the delivery. So all of our units have a Christian worldview underpinning the course content. So it's the Master of Education, but it's uniquely an Excelsia College Master of Education. Being an online degree provides a few distinct advantages. So you'll be able to complete this degree within 16 months. The way that we do that is by offering 6 intakes each year. So we used to think of, February and July being the university starting points, and if you can't make one of those, then you've got to wait a full 6 or 12 months to take up that opportunity to pursue your master's degree. But with our accelerated online study model, you can start 6 times a year. So much, much more flexible for people that are busy and working full time. We don't have any on-campus commitments, so our beautiful Macquarie Park campus is absolutely open to current or future students to come and see us, but there's no requirement at all for you to be anywhere near Sydney in order to do the degree, and even if you're in Sydney, you can complete it from the comfort of your own home, which is much more convenient when you're working and you have a busy life. The degree is 8 units in total, taking 1 unit at a time, so that's how we get to that 16 months. And all of the learning is practical and skill-based from academics such as Peter and others in the faculty, using their combination of academic and teaching experience to really deliver content that our students are enjoying. We do offer 2 specialisations, so you can specialise in either leadership or teaching and learning by taking electives. And student enrolment advisors are really happy to talk to you about which one might be the best fit for your career goals. In terms of studying online more broadly, we do offer also a Master of Business Administration, which some schools' finance managers or principals are looking at doing in that same online accelerated mode. All of our online degrees are 100% online delivery, as I said, flexible, work around your life. We do offer opportunities for you to network with that degree, so given that you can dial in from anywhere, you might be studying alongside someone that works in a different state, perhaps with a different curriculum. Maybe they work in a government school and you work in a Christian school. Maybe your school's socioeconomic demographics are different to someone else, so you get that exposure and network opportunity to really learn about other people's experience and share your own to achieve a better outcome. All of our online students have their own dedicated student success advisor as well. So that's a non-academic support person that helps you to stay on track throughout the degree. So for things like how to access the online learning environment, or you've got an assignment due this week, do you know how to get access to the library, all of that sort of non-academic but relevant support, that's the person that will help you, and it'll be the same person across all 8 units of the Masters. So they'll be there to help get you through, which is great. And just finally, one other opportunity that we do have is thinking about lifelong learning within your school. As the Corporate Partnership Manager for Excelsia College, we're working with a number of schools to build that culture by facilitating some information about topics such as today or about online study, that type of thing. So if you've got other teachers in your school that are thinking about study and you'd like to run a session over the internet like this one, or perhaps in person, be more than happy to talk to your principal or relevant contact person about that. So get in touch with me and I'll do our best to facilitate that type of a session. But I've had some really great conversations with schools and their teachers so far, and keen to share that with your school too. So looking forward to hearing from people about that. Now I might jump into those exciting questions that have come through. I've seen some really interesting ones. So thinking about Peter's advice for lifelong learning, Christine asks, I love reading and have encouraged my students to do this as well with great success. I've just joined a new school this year and I found it not to be encouraged as much as I would like. How would you address this? Did you have some advice for Christine on how to encourage reading in her school, Peter?
That's a difficult situation if you're placed in that sort of environment. And as I said, a lot of schools are so preoccupied with just meeting the curriculum needs that they don't encourage or foster that sort of environment. I don't know, I'd be doing it with your colleagues, if not with the whole school. Try to do it within your own department or your own section of the school and see how it goes. Try and get a few people on side, start a reading group with your colleagues. Try to break down that environment, because ultimately it becomes counterproductive if you do have that sort of environment where you're just there to deliver the goods and then get out of the place. That's really not helpful. I like to think of schools as places you want to go to because you know you're going to find the company you like, the company that can share ideas. There's nothing, of course, to stop you doing it in your own classroom. If you have autonomy within your own classroom, I think you should be able to encourage it there, at least, if not with your colleagues.
Yeah, great. I hope that was helpful for you, Christine, and gives you a little bit of encouragement that you'll get there in the new role at your new school. She says thanks. That's great. Thanks, Christine.
Good.
We also had a question from Vanessa, who asks, can you take 2 units at a time and finish the master's degree faster? I might jump in on that one, Peter. That's a question we get quite a bit from prospective students like you, Vanessa, and absolutely understand that a lot of the time we want to get that degree as fast as we can. We don't ever encourage or permit a student to take 2 units at once because it's not really conducive to quality learning outcomes. The units are just 7 weeks in length, so 1 is more than enough at a time, but it will only take you 16 months or so to complete the master's degree, assuming that you go from start to finish without taking a break. So it's not too long in the grand scheme of things, but we wouldn't let you do 2 at a time. Thanks for your question, Vanessa. And I might just see if there are any others before we wrap up. And I think that's fine. So thank you so much for sharing your insights today, Peter. That was super insightful and such a wealth of experience that we can all take back to our school and our individual learning journeys. So thank you very much. And I hope that the listeners got some valuable insight from the session and those that listen to the recording later as well. If you have any questions at all, don't hesitate to reach out to our friendly enrolment advisor team or to Peter or myself. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Amelia.
Thank you. Goodbye.